Did you know that Napoleon's older brother Joseph escaped to America after Waterloo and lived in New Jersey?
He lived there happily and built this fabulous estate.
This pier table belonged to Joseph Bonapart, Napoleon's brother, who came here after Waterloo.
Joseph was more genteel. He was much more congenial.
But Joseph did not agree with Napoleon's declaring himself emperor. He really wanted to be a country gentleman and live on his estate and a quiet life with his family and entertain the people and develop gardens.
But such a life was only possible for Joseph Bonaparte, the older brother of Napoleon, after he came to America. In Europe, he was a diplomat, king of Naples, and then king of Spain. But in 1815, when Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo, Joseph Bonaparte escaped to America. He moved into this house on 9th Street in Philadelphia, where there was already a large French expatriate community, and then to this spot in Bordentown, New Jersey, on a lovely bluff over the Delaware River. Here he found the country life he had longed for.
Napoleon's older brother spent 17+ years in Bordentown, New Jersey. They're quite amazed. They never heard of such a thing. But he lived there happily and built this fabulous estate. It was much grander than practically any other house. There's one quote a man said, there was no other house as grand except the White House in Washington. It was 1,800 acres, the estate.
The Joseph Bonaparte story is a unique chapter, I think, in New Jersey history. Joseph Bonaparte chose to live here, as do many people today, as a matter of fact, because of its location. Bordentown was on the main road between New York and Philadelphia, the two major urban areas in North America at the time.
If you wanted to go to New York, you took the steamboat from Philadelphia to Bordentown, and then got into a carriage and went the rest of the way.
He had a number of illustrious visitors. Remember, of course, he is on the main road between New York and Philadelphia. Consequently, everyone who travels is relatively nearby. Amongst the famous visitors included John Adams and also the Marquis de Lafayette.
And there were many, many others, including fellow Frenchmen Nicholas Biddle and Stephen Girard, two of America's richest bankers, and the statesman Joseph Hopkinson, who lived near Joseph in Bordentown. But Joseph also opened his home to the not-so-famous and may have exerted a real influence on the cultural and intellectual life of the young nation.
He had more books than the Library of Congress at the time, which is extraordinary. He had a fabulous collection of old masters, as you would say, Titians and Rubens and Snyders and Luca Giordano, and really magnificent things.
The art collection was the most extensive assemblage of European art on the North American continent.
He obviously had a very sharp sort of nose for quality. It also was a huge collection. It goes into the hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
Then there was, in Bordentown, David's great painting of Napoleon crossing the Alps. Quite a famous picture that most people are familiar with. The statue downstairs in the Athenaeum is of Pauline Borghese, who was his sister, Joseph's sister, who was supposed to have been beautiful. And this is a statue by Canova, and it was presumably in Point Breeze, that particular statue. And when Joseph was showing some Quaker ladies around the house, he, no doubt with a little bit of a twinkle, was describing each part of her, saying what beautiful eyes, what beautiful shoulders, what a beautiful bust going on. These ladies are just getting more and more uncomfortable. They tried not to show anything because it would be embarrassing if they seemed to be prudish about it, but they clearly hadn't seen anything like this in Philadelphia.
At the time that he was here, the major cabinet makers of New York and Philadelphia were French. You had in Philadelphia Michel Bouvier, Anthony Carabel. These are people who step off the boat and start making furniture that's exactly the way they were making it 6 months before in France. Decorative arts historians recognize the influence of the era in the broadest sense of the cabinet makers coming here. But they also recognize that if a wealthy Philadelphian went to Point Breeze and saw all of this French furniture, he might indeed want some of it for his own home.
When Joseph died, his house was sold. Paintings and furnishings not already returned to Europe were given away, and most of what remained was sold at 2 enormous public auctions.
Many local families have a tradition of owning a piece of furniture from the Bonapart estate or some relic from the estate. Components of his collection now can be found and seen in galleries in Europe and across North America, from Dublin, Ireland, to New Orleans, to San Francisco.
All that remains are ruined foundations, collapsed tunnels, and the splendid view over the Delaware that has changed little in 200 years.